I'm walking through an airport a long way from home. I forgot to record the intro for this episode at the studio before I left. I don't even have my proper voice recorder here, so I'm doing this on my mobile phone. I'm feeling a bit stressed. In a little while you'll hear an interview that I did with Michaela Borrett. She says it's good to be stressed, which I'm not really feeling right now. Not sure how it's going to go in my hire car, if they'll accept my credit card. I don't even know where it is right now. Hopefully I'll be able to drive across the city and the GPS will work. Oh man, I'm feeling stressed. I think I need a hug.
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
I'm here with Michaela Borrett. I know someone else called Michaela. That must be annoying to have Michaelas and Michaelas. And
yes, it gets muddled up quite a bit.
Yep, and yours is spelt different, doesn't have a CH.
Yep.
All right. So tell us about yourself, Michaela. In particular, your connection with psychology and helping people and counselling, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I've studied a Bachelor of Arts. I specialise in counselling and psychology,
mm-hmm.
and I'm particularly interested in working with children and adolescents. And the main issues that I found coming up are anxiety and depression. Not necessarily in the diagnosed sense, but even in just the whole range of just feeling down and a lot of stress about lots of various things.
Okay. So, Michaela, you've written an article for us in the April edition of Signs of the Times. Thanks for doing that.
Right.
And your focus in that article was on stress in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin the article by talking about your experience doing, I think, you don't actually say it clearly, but I think you're referring to your time during year 12. Is that right? A time when you were pretty stressed?
No, not quite. It's actually my time between finishing my bachelor degree and looking for a job.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So in that time I was, while I was studying, I took on a lot of extracurricular things and I was trying to fit a lot into my program. And then this was a time trying to simplify and focus on what did I really want to fit into my time? What do I want to commit to?
Okay, you realise you can't do everything all of a sudden.
Yes, I did realise that. It was very stressful trying to do everything.
Okay, and I guess this is a really common thing for people. People say, oh, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed. It's all, this is a very common experience in, I guess, the modern Western world. Is that a factor with the people who you come in contact with through your counselling and just, with your everyday life?
Yes, everyone seems to be more busy these days. There's so many things trying to get our attention, trying to distract us. And with technology and things, we're always trying to multitask and do multiple things at once.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the whole presence of social media and, having a smartphone with us all the time and all these, alerts and notifications always popping up and distracting us, and everyone has to multitask. Everyone's constantly distracted.
Yep. There's always something trying to get your attention or get a response from you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you say in the article that you went through a period of trying to cut back and trying to sort of be a bit more minimalistic and decide what was important. How did that go?
Yeah, so I was trying to learn the art of saying no, even to things that maybe you want to do, but just working out what do I really have time for, what do I want to focus on, and in particular working out what kind of area of counselling I wanted to go into, and what did I have time for, what did I want to study.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. I guess what's fascinating about your article is that you actually suggest that there's a fair bit of evidence out there that stress is actually good for us in some ways. And that's kind of surprising. But before we do that, can you just explain for us, from a psychological point of view, a research point of view, how is stress bad for us?
Mm-hmm. Well, so stress is bad for us because it can weaken our immune system, which leaves us more susceptible to viruses, diseases, and can lead to exhaustion and breakdown if we really become overwhelmed. Okay. And it can also lead to anxiety disorders, panic disorders, when that internal alarm system is going off for prolonged periods of time when there is an actual threat there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So probably should have taken a step back before asking that and say, well, what actually is stress? Can you define it for us from a psychologist's point of view in a way that, that I'll understand?
Well, stress is kind of any sort of tension that we feel, whether emotionally or physically. We kind of have that full body response to stress. Any sort of time period where we're feeling a bit pressured, that either to get things done or nervous about anything coming up. Stress kind of covers all that range of things.
Okay. So when you say full body response, are you talking about the sweating palms, the feeling shaky, sweating, suddenly feeling hot, pounding heart? Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
the butterflies in your stomach.
So that's what you mean by full body experience. What is going on in our bodies that produces those kind of symptoms?
So that's actually our body's natural stress resilience response. So our our muscles are tightening, our heart is pumping more blood around our body so that we're actually equipped to respond to the stress or the threat that we're experiencing.
Okay. So in some ways this kind of makes sense if you're strolling through the savannas of Africa and an elephant suddenly bursts out of the bush and you need to make a quick decision and possibly run.
Yeah.
That's
what your body's preparing you literally to move. Yeah.
Okay. But if you're sitting at your desk on a computer and you're on Facebook and someone says something really horrible about you, then those symptoms in some ways feel dysfunctional.
Yes. In that case, it's not your thoughts and your body response is not really matching up. You don't really need to run. There's not an actual physical threat against you.
There's another sort of threat. So that's how it can feel weird and it can feel like there's something wrong.
And that's where it can feel overwhelming. It feels like your body's shutting down on you or not functioning properly and is actually trying to prepare you to do something about it.
Okay. So what you're saying is that when a person is continually exposed to these sort of stress-inducing events, this bodily response is triggered over and over and over again.
Yep.
And that can actually get things out of whack in your body so far as your hormonal balance or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so the neurotransmitters in your brain, that chemical imbalance, that can cause an anxiety disorder, or in like panic attack disorders, your alarm system is being set off when there is no threat around. So your body's going into that kind of fight or flight mode when you're actually not in danger. So your body's setting off that alarm, it's like a faulty alarm.
Oh, okay. And so like with PTSD, for example, like post-traumatic stress disorder, I think one of the effects is people are, what do they call it, hypervigilance, where you're basically constantly on the alert, constantly on the lookout that something's going to get me. So if there's a sudden noise or someone comes up behind you unexpectedly, like you jump and you're ready to respond, whereas I guess normally you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, so that in that case, that certain stimulus, your body's associating that with the stimulus of an actual threat, and then the alarm's going off when the threat isn't there anymore.
Okay, all right. So I think we can understand from that how stress can be bad for you.
Yeah.
And I think we all instinctively relate to that. Oh, so much stress, I need to relax. It's all too much.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, well, that's right. But as I said, you've suggested that stress is good for us. And I think you've sort of given us a little bit of a hint there by saying that your body's stress response is functional, like it assists you to respond to a legitimate threat. So that's a way in which stress is good for us, I guess you could say. But are there other ways in which stress is good for us?
Yeah, well, so in that case, that response, our body's designed to respond that way, to protect ourselves. But also, interestingly enough, in that stress response, the hormone oxytocin is released. And that's the same hormone that's released during physical contact and connection with others. And so in that stress response, the hormone being released is actually prompting us to seek connection from others.
Okay, all right. So oxytocin, we're not talking about OxyContin or oxycodone or like these, these opioid addictions that people have.
Not the medications.
No, this is not. Oxytocin is a naturally produced chemical or hormone in our bodies.
Yes.
That it's sort of known as the bonding hormone.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of its street name.
Its street name.
It's probably a better way to say that.
No, I like that. So when when a woman gives birth, for example, there can be they see that baby and they have that feeling of, oh my goodness, I love this little bundle of joy.
Yeah.
That's a rush of oxytocin.
Yeah, that's the hormone that's being released.
Okay.
Yes.
Or I don't know if you've looked into, in the sexual experience, the afterglow after sex. Is that bonding oxytocin?
So that's that hormone being released again.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's oxytocin. But what you're saying is that when we're under stress, oxytocin is released.
Yeah, so there's been some interesting research that's found that hormone's also released when we're stressed, which then drives us to be connected to others.
Okay. I was thinking about this and I thought, well, that kind of makes sense. You think about a little kid who, falls over and hurts their knee on something. What is their first impulse? It's to run to mum or dad for a hug.
Yeah, to seek that connection, or they want touch.
So, it's interesting. So it's almost, it seems like you say, it's a naturally programmed, naturally designed response that when we're under stress, we go to someone for comfort. We feel a need for connection. But it's weird because as we become adults, it seems, I don't know, we lose that in some way. We think if we're hurt, we need to go off into a room and cry by ourselves or something.
Yeah, we don't want to ask for help, or we don't want to rely on somebody else. We just want to be able to look after ourselves.
All right. So you're saying stress can be good in the sense that it can help us to, it drives us to bond with other people, to strengthen our relationships with other people.
Yes, and then that hormone oxytocin actually helps us recover from stress. So physically, it repairs the cells of the heart after they've been kind of exerted in that fight or flight response. Oxytocin then goes back in and repairs the cells after that physical response of our body as well.
It actually repairs damage. So things that have been damaged through all the rush of stress or adrenaline or whatever going through your body, the oxytocin comes and helps repair that quicker than it would repair otherwise.
Yeah. So then if you do respond by connecting with somebody and then more oxytocin is released, that kind of reinforces that pattern, that positive response that you've had in managing your stress, and then the hormone actually physically repairs your body after you've physically responded to stress.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about, I mentioned PTSD before, and often we associate that with, soldiers who are on the battlefield on the front line, and there's some pretty hardcore stuff going on, pretty traumatic stuff going on. And what you often hear from those soldiers when they get back is they say, I can't really explain this to anyone else. No one else really understands apart from other soldiers, and I've never felt closer to other people than I did at that time. With my buddies on the front line there. We went through something incredibly traumatic together, and it brought us incredibly close.
Yeah, that would have been that rush of oxytocin, that relying on each other, that would have really strengthened that bond. I imagine in that situation that's even kind of heightened even more. Yeah.
So I guess on the flip side, if you were to go through a traumatic episode and that rush of oxytocin comes to prompt you to bond with someone, and when you try to bond with someone, you get rejected, you get pushed back, or you find yourself alone in some way, that must be a very confusing, difficult time for a human to go through.
Yeah, that can be quite damaging in that it's kind of preventing you from that natural response that your body wants. It's kind of that negative experience is kind of making you question whether, this is what I think I need, but I'm not getting that. And it can be quite confusing and quite a lonely feeling when you're not getting that reassurance that you need.
And I guess what repeated experiences of that could end you up with, I guess, some fairly mixed up ideas. I mean, you're children, you see things like attachment disorders and things like that. It really
reinforces that if I'm stressed, there may not be somebody there to support me, and that can increase the stress.
So you've linked some of these positive responses of stress to an interesting source that I have to admit I didn't see coming. You've actually gone back 2,000 years to look at the words of Jesus Christ, and you've linked that with this whole thing of oxytocin and stress. Please, talk us through that.
Yeah. So then once I came came aware of this research, I was then reading about in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, in chapter 5, Jesus' Beatitudes. And this is quite a well-known sermon that he talked about. And these Beatitudes or blessings...
This is a series of statements that he made. We say, blessed are this kind of people, blessed are those kind of people, blessed are another kind of people. And each time he says, blessed are these because of that, blessed are those because of that, blessed are those. Okay, a series of statements.
Yeah, a series of statements like that. So I was looking at two in particular in conjunction with this research. And the first one was, God blesses those who are poor and realise their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs.
Okay, so God blesses those who are poor. See, that's just weird straight away. And I imagine it would have been weird to Jesus' first hearers. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I thought it was
It's all back to front.
Yeah, I thought it was the wealthy people who were blessed. What do you mean by saying the poor are blessed?
Yeah.
So what did he mean, and how do you connect that with this psychological research?
Yeah, well, if you were to Google the most stressful life experiences, there's a variety of lists, but all of those lists usually include loss of job or a situation that has negative financial repercussions.
And I think pretty consistently one of the top 3 causes of divorce is financial stress.
Yes. So, it's related. So in the Bible saying that the blessed are those who are poor and realise their need for him. This is compatible with the research telling us that in these stressful circumstances, if we realise our need for other people, if we reach out to other people, we're actually going to be healthier.
Okay, all right. So you're saying if you go through that tough time, you're struggling with money, but you use that opportunity and that stress to reach out to other people, to connect with other people, to ask for help from other people.
Yeah.
You actually end up feeling connected in a way that perhaps you wouldn't have if you hadn't have gone through those tough financial times.
Yeah. And recognising that the stress is not actually harmful for you is kind of the key factor there. So a little bit more research that I probably didn't touch on earlier was shared in a TED Talk by psychologist Kelly McGonigal.
Yep, love TED Talks.
Yes, they're brilliant. This one was really interesting because she realised that everything she'd been telling her clients about stress was actually wrong. And
oops.
Yeah, whoops.
Someone's going to sue.
Yeah. And she found that actually the risk of premature death, stress-related, was only increased if the individuals actually perceived the stress as harmful for them.
Wow.
So
this is real mind over matter stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really the power of the brain is quite strong over the body.
Yeah.
So it found that avoiding stress actually caused atrophy, which is the degeneration of the cells. So the body actually physically starts breaking down.
Wow.
And
so we need challenges. We
actually need that stress and we need that release of oxytocin to build our body, to be physically healthy and to be emotionally healthy, to connect with people.
Oh, okay. So the worst thing you can do is to say, I'm just staying in bed, I'm going to curl up here, nothing can hurt me here. I won't have to, no one's going to ask me to do anything. I'm just going to stay here alone because people are too hard. That results in atrophy.
Yeah, your body will physically start breaking down. Yeah.
Wow. Far out. Okay. Yeah. So blessed are the poor, because when you're under stress, you'll connect. You'll connect with people.
Yeah. If you realise what your body needs, it needs you to connect and reach out to other people. And if you realise that that's what your body is doing and that it's not trying to shut down on you or trying to harm you, then you'll actually be healthier physically and emotionally.
Wow. Okay. And you had another beatitude too, I think.
Yeah. So the next one was, God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
So mourn, we're talking about like grief and loss here. Yeah.
So mourning is showing and feeling that grief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we're probably less good at doing in our culture. I mean, there are some cultures, I think of Papua New Guinea, where I spent some years growing up, like they have a ceremony called a house cry, where everyone goes to the house of the family of the deceased, and there's lots of wailing and screaming and falling down on the ground dramatically, and for a sort of white, stiff upper lip, people, like my people and my culture, that's all a bit, over the top.
You've got to try and be composed and keep that kind of front that
but
you're
in other
okay.
cultures, it's, you need to get it out, express it, have a good cry. We even say that in our own culture. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, actually falling apart and relying on other people is actually really healthy.
So blessed are those who mourn, okay.
Yeah, because so in those list of most stressful life experiences, all of the lists include a death of a spouse or a loved one, and they usually include divorces or separation.
Yeah.
And as we know, those experiences result in a sense of loss and then grief.
And an activity of mourning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, again, you're saying, blessed are those who mourn. Is that another stressful situation that is going to drive us to connect with others? Is it the same, basically the same insight that you're drawing out of that?
Yeah, pretty similar. So we're blessed when we mourn. So when we actually feel and show that grief rather than just experiencing it on the inside, that will lead us to seek comfort from others. And that's when, again, we can be physically and emotionally healthier.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. So what does this suggest to us? These insights from psychology, from the Bible even, what do they suggest to us about our attitude as we face life? What sort of things should we be looking out for? And what sort of strategy should we, have in place when it comes to stressful situations? Because sometimes it's good to, what do they say? To be forewarned is to be forearmed. If you have a strategy in your mind about, okay, well, next time I face this stressful situation, I'm going to do A, B, C. Can you give us an A, B, C?
Yeah, well, something that I've been trying to do since becoming aware of this research is when I notice that I'm starting to feel anxious or nervous about something, is taking time to pause and note, what is my body physically doing?
Okay.
So, am I getting a bit sweaty? Is my heart racing? Am I feeling a bit sick in the stomach? What is it that my body's telling me?
Okay. And what effect does that have? Because I'm pretty sure I've heard that advice when it comes to anxiety attacks, to actually be aware and name the things that are happening to your bodies.
Yeah, so kind of being aware, it just brings you sort of out of your mind where you can kind of get lost in those thoughts and they can get bigger and bigger and swallow you up, and just becoming aware of what's happening right now.
Okay.
And it really helps to ground you and to help you focus on what's true and what is my mind really blowing out of proportion.
So it sort of helps you be a bit more objective. Like, in a sense, you're stepping out of your body and observing yourself and saying, no, wait a minute, what am I feeling here? What am I doing? What sort of thoughts are going around and around in my head? Because sometimes you get this really negative self-talk that can spiralate. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is going to end up so badly. This is, oh no, this is the biggest disaster ever in my whole life. Because you're standing at the checkout and the thing said, card declined, and you're you're convinced this is the end of your life.
It's the worst thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because there's quite a link between your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviour. So there's that kind of circular link. So if you're kind of stopping and interrupting that circle and thinking, okay, wait, what am I doing? What am I thinking?
Okay. So step one, be aware. Yeah. Be aware.
So be aware. What's your body trying to tell you? What are you doing?
Yep.
And then thinking, so what does that mean I need to do? So am I stressed because I've got lots of things to get done? So, do I need to be a bit more productive? Do I need to be a bit more intentional with my time? Or is there something that's really making me uncomfortable? Is there something that maybe I need to separate myself from? Okay,
so what's causing this? Okay.
Yeah, thinking about, what is it? And on the flip side it could be, is this reasonable? Like, one of the things that I often do with clients is, so if something that they're worrying about, and I might ask them, so what's the worst that could happen? Or, so if that happens, what's the worst that's going to happen? And usually if you follow that train of thought and those questions, and sometimes it takes a few goes of asking, you usually get to, oh, that's not actually likely to happen at all.
Yep.
And that can really help kind of stop you from spiraling down into that, into the worst thing's going to happen.
I think my son Levi.
Yeah.
When he was really small, he was petrified of the bath. Like, if the bath was filling up for him to have a bath and the level was getting higher, he'd start freaking out.
Yeah.
And it was like he had this idea of catastrophe in his head, that what was going to happen if the bath overflowed.
Yeah.
So one day I said, right, okay, we're just going to keep the bath going till it does overflow, and then you're going to see what happens.
Yeah, and you'll see it's not that bad.
Exactly. It just went over the edge, it went across the bathroom floor a bit and down the plug hole that was in the middle of the bathroom, and it was like, see, it's no great disaster. So that was a really important thing for him to go through to actually start to reduce that fear. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so just then thinking, just determining, is this reasonable, or is there something I can do about it?
Yep, sure.
It's really important.
And what about the oxytocin bonding thing? Is another practical tip to like use that opportunity of stress to connect with someone, to share with someone?
Yeah, so because we know that our body's releasing that hormone, that's what we're seeking, the best thing is to reach out to somebody, to tell somebody, to even just to spend some time with somebody and to release more of that oxytocin and physically repair your body. Yeah.
So I guess that what best possible result would be someone you trust and care about who's physically right there, who you can give a hug. That can actually... You say, well, what's the point of a hug? It doesn't solve my problem. It doesn't put money back in my account. But
it's going to physically help your body.
It's going to physically help you.
Yeah.
Wow. All
and
right.
Also even not just the physical touch, but even eye contact releases that oxytocin. So that
really?
quality time with somebody and actually making eye contact with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, does that still count over Skype or FaceTime?
I don't know if they've done research that works over screens. I'm sure it would, because it's that feeling, that connection with somebody and that you've got their attention.
Yeah. Or even exchanging a couple of text messages or whatever. I mean, I guess that's got to be better than nothing.
Yeah, that's still connecting with someone that's still going to release that hormone. Yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So there's some other really interesting research that shows the importance of eye contact for the release of oxytocin. And there's been some studies now with mothers and newborn babies that's showing that mothers are being interrupted by text messages, phone calls, or they're trying to be on social media and multitask, or they're breastfeeding, or changing a nappy even. And not having that eye contact with their babies, they've found is actually putting them at risk of depression in adolescence.
Putting the babies
at risk.
Later in life.
Of mental disorders later in life.
Wow. Do you know the incredible thing about that, and I've heard and I believe it's true, that, babies don't see very well, but the perfect focal distance for them, like where they can see clearly and in focus, is the distance between the breast and the mother's eye.
Yeah. Is that person
incredible.
Right there nurturing them. Yeah. And that eye contact is really important for them to feel that support and then release that hormone, which is vital for their brain development.
Look, these are really fascinating insights, Michaela, and to me, I guess I'm just left in awe, really, of, the way that we're created, our bodies and minds, and the way that we are created for connection with one another. We human beings are social animals, aren't we? We really are. We're created to live in families, we're created to nurture one another, and it's a really beautiful part of life. I mean, you say in the article that you're a bit of an introvert.
Yes.
You like to be by yourself. What have these insights done for you in terms of perhaps changing the way you think about or the way you go about connecting with other people?
Well, as an introvert, when I'm stressed, or my go-to to recharge, re-energize, is to do it by myself. So knowing this research has really made me more intentional about making sure that I reach out to somebody while I'm stressed. Because when you stay on your own, when you're isolated, that's when it can really spiral and get out of control. Being isolated is quite a risk to your mental health. So making sure that I remember that it's important for me to connect with somebody else and to let someone else know. And that doesn't mean a whole bunch of people. That could be one important person, one close person.
Yeah. Which is more likely for an introvert, I guess, to have a couple of
more comfortable for an introvert.
A couple of close friends, but they're really vitally important.
Yes.
Wow. The whole idea of the healing touch is not just an expression.
Yeah, it's actually what our body physically does. It actually heals itself with touch.
It's something real. Wow, that's incredible. Hey, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, Michaela.
Right, thank you, Kent. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.